Hey guys, Nicole here with Obscure Reptiles and Caging, and today we're breaking down how much a ball python breeder can actually make. So let's get started. Guys, so in this video we're going to be breaking down how much money you can actually make per clutch of ball python eggs. Obviously this is going to have a huge range to it, from what you're breeding, where you're located, the scale, who you're selling it to, the quality of the animals. There's going to be a ton of factors, so I'm going to break it down specifically for what I do and what I have found actually works, and pricing and stuff that I have found. The biggest factor is going to be what morphs you're actually breeding. If you're just breeding a normal to a lesser, you're not going to even make your money back. That's really not worth it, and there are already so many in the market right now. That's really not the most ethical thing to be breeding, especially if you're doing, like, let's say a het pied to a het pied, when just normal pieds are very inexpensive at this time. Some snakes are $20, $30 at expos, up to $25, $35, $45,000. So depending on what morphs, what the market looks like when you're breeding, this is going to widely range, so I'm going to break it down as simply as possible. So let's make up a scenario. Let's say you have one male, and let's call it a blue-eyed Lucy, because so many people like blue-eyed Lucies. We're going to say that you're going to get two females, one Mojave and one lesser. That way both of them can breed to the blue-eyed Lucy, but both of them will produce slightly different offspring. Let's say you buy the adult trio, let's just call it $1,000. And let's say that they're already proven, they're already adults, so they're already ready to go. Or you can maybe pay, let's say, $500 for that same group, but you're going to be purchasing them as babies. And once they're babies, now you're looking at 3 to 5 years, sometimes 6 or 7 years, to get them to breeding age. So let's go over all the things that you are going to need and be able to afford. Let's say you already have this stuff, but for people who are brand new getting into this, make sure you have and think about, are you do racks or cages? There's a huge price difference. You have sizes for babies, grow outs, and adults. Where are you getting your rodents from? Are you breeding them yourself, or are you buying from someone local, and do you rely on that person that's local? Do you have shipping supplies? Do you have things like thermostats, temperature guns, water bowls, hides, deli cups for shipping or for shows? Any kind of bedding that you're going to be using, like gaps or ReptiChip? How are you going to heat them? What sources are you going to use? Also, keep in mind your heat and water bill are going to change. Are you going to heat the entire room? Is some room in your house warm enough to do all this? A lot of space ends up being taken up. And all these bills are going to vary a ton. If you are, let's say, just buying only one size mouse, and it's $1 per mouse, and you have 3 snakes, that's no big deal. But let's say you want to have 20 ball python, they're eating all different size rats, and your cost is, $4, $6 a rat from a pet store. You're going to have close to a $100 bill quick every single week. Now, if you're going to do all this, where are you going to sell them? Are you going to vend at reptile shows, which also cost money? All the shows have different prices. Do you have a morph market? Is there anyone local who wants to purchase from you, like a pet store? Are you okay with shipping that animal? Do you know how to ship that animal? Do you have things like a website? Do you have a market for these animals? Do you have a place or a local store? Do you own a store? All these things you have to think about before actually producing the animals. Highly recommend start going with your social media, because that's going to be one of the best ways to be able to have an outreach, but think about that when it comes to all of this. Now, when it comes to just those 3 snakes we started with, the blue-eyed Lucy and then the female Mojave and lesser, let's say they each give you a clutch of 8 eggs, right? So that's 16 babies. The odds are 50% of all babies will be blue-eyed Lucies. So we're just going to go with percentages, but keep in mind you could get none or you could get all blue-eyed Lucies from clutches like this. So if the odds are 50% blue-eyed Lucy, out of 16, that would be 8 blue-eyed Lucies. So 4 of them would be male and 4 would be female. With the current market right now, you could sell them for $250 male and $275 female. That's $1,000 for males and $1,100 for the females. Now let's say you're going to have 4 Mojaves and 4 lessers. And again, 2 male, 2 female, 2 male, 2 female. Let's say you're able to sell them for $100 each, which is a little high. Then that right there is $400 and $400. That means you just made $2,900. But you have to deduct all the price and amount for taking care of the adults for an entire year. So you're looking at 52 feedings for the moms and the dad. The out price of the incubator, the bedding, the substrate, the water bowls, thermostats, temperature guns, if you don't already have all of it. Now, each baby, let's say they need at least 5 feedings or more. So that's 5 feedings times 16. That is 80 pinky mice or rats. And that's only if you're selling those snakes right away. If not, let's say the average is 12 weeks that you're keeping these snakes. You have to remember your heating, cleaning is a big one, especially because these babies eat every 3 to 5 days when they're newborns. You're going to be cleaning that cage every 3 days, every 4 days minimum. If you, for example, like we used to go camping a lot in summer, which really didn't work with breeding ball pythons, because in summers when you get a ton of your eggs, a ton of your babies. So if, for example, you're planning on going on a vacation and your snakes have been breeding and they're coming close to having eggs, someone has to be there to now take out the eggs and be knowledgeable about that kind of stuff. So you're going to need to either have assistance or just plan on always being around depending on what your snakes are doing. Don't forget the cage space. If you have 16 babies, none of them sell right away, and let's say you had a third snake and you only had 16 hatchling spaces, and you have another clutch of eggs about to hatch, either you're going to need to upgrade or you're going to need to sell for a price that you don't really want to sell for. So make sure you keep that in mind, especially, for example, I see a lot of people who they plan to have 200 eggs, but they only have 150 spots for hatchlings. Just make sure that you're prepared just in case things don't turn out the way you want them to. So let's call it $900 for the 3 adults to be cared for all year. That's all their meals, all their water, all their bedding they're going to go through, all their food, and then at least, let's say you sell all your babies by 10 or 12 weeks old, same thing. All together for all of them, let's say it costs about $900. So that would put you at $1,000 profit per mom. So something that I did just to get a good idea about how much each snake was going for, I had this full chart again that broke down the morph, the gender, the price, what I wanted, what I sold it for, and I did that for a couple years in a row. And then, for example, let's say I made $5,000 that year and I sold 50 babies. That means I approximately got $100 per baby. And then I went and I did the math of how many eggs I was getting. I generally get about 8 eggs as my average. Most of them were 6 or 10 for whatever reason. There was really no in between. So my average was 8 eggs for all of my females and all my clutches. So if I decided to breed, let's say 10 females times 8 eggs, that's about 80 eggs. Well, I just did the math of I get about $100 per baby. I could assume I'll get about $8,000 for that season. And again, all this is going to range so drastically when it comes to where you are when you're deciding to do this. If you bred during COVID, then you got a lot more money for simple morphs and morphs that weren't worth that much before or even now. Even as simple as how much you're paying for rodents is going to drastically be different. For example, we bulk purchase our bedding and our food to be able to get a slight discount. But if you're buying it by the bag because you don't need that much or you're not going through that much, then your price is going to be a lot different than my price. Hopefully that helps you guys out and breaks it down a little bit more for you, but that's it for this video. If you have any other questions, please put them in the comments below. If you haven't already, please subscribe. We do new videos every single week. So I'll see you guys in the next video.